Everybody, hello, welcome. Voxology podcast here. I went in to that intro without any counting down, so Tim, that's one less thing you have to worry about.
Yep. Thank you.
Couple things. First of all, we're delighted that you would be joining us. We are continually shocked that anyone outside of our immediate families listens to this, and so thank you for that. Secondly, Timothy John Stafford, we have a bit of a shindig, if I can use that word loosely, that we are throwing. Do you throw a shindig? Host a shindig?
I think you host it.
In May 9th, 10th, and 11th. We mentioned this last episode. We're going to mention it one more time. We are hosting 18 pre-selected, what would we call them? Ministry folks, ministry adjacent folks who...
This is people who are predestined? Is that what you were saying?
Yes, you are part of the elect. No, we're because of we are just surrounded by incredibly generous people. We are hosting a 48-hour gathering for people who are in vocational ministry. You don't have to be a pastor, even though we call it a pastor's gathering, but you know what we mean. And one of the things that we continually hear from our audience about is the need to have a safe space when you're working in and around churches to actually process the real things that are happening in your life and the doubts that you have and the struggles that you have. And even some of the, like, should I get out of here questions that arise from time to time. And we want to provide a space like that. We have a therapist, a spiritual director, myself, Tim, Susie, and we have room for 18 people. All you have to do is pay to get to Nashville and then drive to our church. Everything else is covered. All your lodging, food, the incredible swag bag. This is not, we are in no way related to a conference, nor are we conference adjacent. Nope. We are very simply, we have...
it's like an inverted conference.
Yes. I don't know, inference? Yeah. So we have both served in church environments and have both wrestled with the big questions, and at times have felt not permission to go through and wrestle with some of the big issues and questions. And so we wanted to provide a space where that can happen. So if you are interested, we need you ASAP to email us at hello@voxpodcast.com and just give us your email and say, hey, I'm interested, and we'll send you a Google form that is not at all exhausting, but it gives us a feel for who you are and why this would be helpful. And if we have more than 18 people apply, we'll kind of prioritize the most in crisis folk. And then we'll see if this is something that is very much a good thing and helpful. It's something we're obviously open to down the road. Anything you want to add to that, Timothy, other than general excitement?
Nope, just generally excited. I am. I'm really excited for this. I think it's going to be amazing. Yes,
it's going to be amazing. So, the second thing is... we are on YouTube, ladies and gentlemen. If you are a listener of the podcast, would you, as my son Seth says, hit that subscribe button? I guess the YouTube overlords that control the algorithm love subscribers. So, I mean, if you have time, that'd be awesome. And if you have any interest in seeing our mouths working as you're hearing the words proceed from them,
wow, then that was quite a sentence right there.
Then YouTube is the place for you. Lastly, I'm overdue to thank some folks that have come on our Patreon team. And so I want to thank Faith and Evan and Christina and Rebecca and Ron, Joel and Carol, Gabe, Amy, Allison, Hillary, and Brenna. Thank you so very much. As you guys know, Siri's still talking to me.
Man, Siri always wants to be a part of everything.
I know, seriously. She's always listening.
Seriously.
Oh, come on now. So one of the things that we talk about and are so grateful for is that we are crowd-funded community where all that people do to support us is tax deductible. And so we're just honored to be a part of a community that cares enough to value this stuff. So thank you. Thank you. I know the very, you can't tell, Tim, that is like a pre-recorded bit that you do at the end.
What?
So
no, I do that live every week.
Yeah. All right. So let's see. Next episode, we're going to talk to a scholar about women in ministry, since that subject isn't going to go away anytime soon. Then we've got some more revelation to get to, and we have to check in with our good friend, the Reverend Gombis.
That's right.
But Tim and I, we received an email and got permission to share this on air, and I think it will give us cause to revisit some material that we've covered before, but maybe not as focusedly. This is from...
You understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
Yeah. Oh, just picture a breadstick, Olive Garden breadstick that has a mouth, and that's Mike. And then picture a pretzel.
All right.
With a hairy pretzel, and that's Tim.
That's what everybody wants.
Oh, hey guys, I've listened to every one of your podcasts. Now, the minute somebody rolls that out to us,
you've got our attention.
We feel two things immediately. Number one, we're sorry. And number two, we're thankful. And we should probably have a helpline for those people. 7.5 years. What episode is this, Tim? This is 340 something?
No, this is 390.
Like I said, 390 something. And at least one person has listened to all of them besides us, which is ridiculous.
Yeah,
so thank you. This pastor then proceeds, after such a compliment, to say that you're wrong about light beer. He must be talking to you, because I like Coors Light. Coors Light is not light beer. Coors Light is beer. Chemex coffee is where it's at. I don't know what that is, but I'm sure, I'm not a coffee guy, but I'm sure Chemex is probably very expensive.
Sounds like what was in the first Batman movie when the Joker started poisoning everybody? What was
Did he have a Chemex?
Oh, it's called Brand X. Brand X.
Oh, Brand X. Oh, that's funny. Well, for the sequel, could be Chemex.
There you go.
Pearl Jam is great. Yes.
All right.
I loved the radio episode. Man, this guy's checking boxes. This guy's demonstrating his credentials. What's another band you all would do a deep dive in? I vote for more Nirvana, Foo Fighters, some indie band Tim is into. All right. That's fair. I can do the Foos. I can do Nirvana. I look up to you both and appreciate the way you guys handle hard topics. Well, we'll see if you do after we get through with your question. I'm a pastor, and our church elders and I are wrestling with a particular church discipline case. Without giving details, it surrounds adultery and marriage. And we are shocked. I've been wrestling with the typical Matthew 18 process and wonder if you might riff on your take on best ways to come alongside and restore people committed to their sins, as well as loving the offended party. So to restore people who are committed to their sins, as well as restoring the offended party. All I know is I don't know much. And I would greatly appreciate any thoughts. Love the work, praying for your families. What a kind and thoughtful email. And I hope you can see why it is we wanted to take a bit of time on this. Tim, more than I, has been on the receiving end of church discipline.
Yeah.
And so, no, not at all. Actually, quite the reverse. But
the nuns used to come and hit my knuckles with the rulers.
Things that have never happened for 400, Alex. So if you've listened to every episode, dear questioner, you know we did a whole series of podcasts on centered set churches, centered set theology, centered set churches, and a part of that, we did a little riff on church discipline. So I can refer you to that one. But this is a subject that I think treads on a lot of things that we're constantly talking about. And so I think it's worth revisiting without reviewing all of the center set stuff entirely. If you don't know, center set is a way of talking about how unity gets created. You can create unity around uniformity and using bounded lines to determine who's in and who's out of a group. Centered set is the idea that lines aren't determining who's in and who's out, or morality or theology or whatever, but rather one's orientation to the center determines kind of who's in and who's out. So you can be very close to the center and be oriented away from it, and you can be very far away from the center and oriented to it. And it has loads of applications for how we understand church and table fellowship and all the things that Jesus is up to in the world. So it's a really, really important concept. And one of the things that we defined as being the center for a church community, right? If a church community is truly focused on Christ, it will become a community of justice and peacemaking. It will become a community of cruciformity, which means it's cross-shaped, and it will become a community of new creation, where it will be practicing and aligning itself with the dynamics that are true in the future that we get to embody now. And so this hopefully is review for some of you, but the idea is that there are times when, even in our world of rugged individualism, where we need to help people reorient their lives. And this idea of church discipline, and I'll just use that phrase for now, although I think we can come up with much better phrases. The idea of discipline or church discipline is to restore people. At its best, it's to restore people into alignment with the center. That's at its best. At its worst, I mean, it's spiritual abuse. It's it's gaslighting and victim shaming and all the things that we're aware of. But at its best, it's something that the New Testament very much encourages and sees as a central role of the church. That the church is a group of people who are oriented together towards the center, which is Christ, and becoming a community that represents Jesus well. Yeah. And the center isn't just anyone's take on Jesus, but it's like the Jesus presented in the Gospels, and doing the best that we can through the interpretive filters that we have to get at the beauty and the compelling nature of who this Jesus is. Now, the two obstacles that we have to overcome in practicing a very healthy kind of restoration and realignment, we have to overcome our individualism. We're taught that I have a right to life, liberty, and happiness, and no one can infringe upon that right unless I'm harming another.
Right.
Jesus presents a different picture of human flourishing, where taking up your cross is abandoning the rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and embracing the cross-shaped life that sees greatness as self-expenditure for the sake of others. And so on the one hand, living in a very individualistic society, as far as like worldly quote unquote values go, this is great. I love it, especially when it's coupled with the tolerance that we're all sort of the tolerance that we're all sort of, I was going to say imbibing, but it's not a word, but we're kind of soaked in. the idea that not only does everyone have a right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, but none of us has the right to judge another's pursuit of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness unless they're harming another. And so those two values, the individualism and like the quest for absolute tolerance, man, if I had to choose to live under values that, are reflected in society, those are two great ones, but they don't accurately reflect the values of the kingdom of God. And part of the whack job that we're seeing that is some forms of American Christianity is actually the result of
exactly that.
Exactly, of baptizing the American definitions of greatness and self-sufficiency and so on, and calling those Christian rather than really embracing the upside-down kingdom of Jesus. So in that upside-down kingdom, there are times and places where we have to be realigned and reoriented, and we can't do that ourselves. We need help. And the New Testament's vision of this is very specific. And so I want to just take a moment to make some very obvious points that, dear listener, you would already, I'm sure, agree with, but they just have to be said. The first one is that judgment, however it's practiced, or discipline, however we mean it, is only to be done within the church. Like Paul, and we've talked about this before, Paul will say, what business is it of mine to judge those outside the church? I judge those inside. Yeah. God will judge those outside. Or 1 Peter, we'll talk about the time of God's judgment begins with God's household. So in the New Testament horizon, it's never, hey, the world's getting worse out there and the church has to do something about the world. The church is the object of all of the imperatives in the New Testament. It's not the world. Yeah. It's the corruption and lukewarmness of the church that's at issue. So for a lot of us, we spend all of our time worrying and judging about those people out there when the New Testament is very, very concerned about what's happening within the church community.
Yeah, you just described like most of America right now. And like, you know what I mean? Like, this is how the church exists. Not the whole church, but a lot of the church exists exactly in this and mandating how other people live their lives.
That's right. And that's what happens when we get hijacked by culture war thinking.
Yeah.
Is the job of the church is to represent morality in political terms, and that the problem is out there. If everyone just agreed with us, we'd be better off. The issue in the New Testament is never that. It's never somebody else. It's always us, and then when you boil it down, then it's me. We'll get to that in a second. So who do we judge? The people who have voluntarily acknowledged to be disciples of Jesus of Nazareth. And the people who have not subscribed to that should not be held to that same basic set of ethics and morals and theology. I mean, that's basic Christian principle number one. Yeah. We expect non-Christians to act like non-Christians and Christians to act like Christians. There you go. And if we just focused on that for 20 years, we'd be much better off. The second thing is where we judge. And the New Testament vision is of small groups of individuals and households where you're actually on the inside of each other's lives.
Yeah.
The mega church idea, there were large crowds in the New Testament, right? 3,000 people accept Jesus on the day Peter preaches. So crowds aren't the issue, but the dynamics of this sort of restoration and reorientation and realignment that we're to practice with each other can only be done in much smaller groups where permission's been given to speak into each other's lives. And so, the glimpses we get from the New Testament and some of the later writings of church history, these were house churches that met in homes where people knew each other, where they were meeting regularly, if not frequently, sharing meals together. And the letters often were written to deal with problems that were popping up in the communities.
Yeah.
And the assumption is that within those communities, if everyone had agreed that they were going to follow this Jesus, Paul or Peter or John or whoever would explain what following this Jesus looks like in that specific setting.
Yeah.
So there are some elements of, say, Matthew 18 or 1 Corinthians 5 that you can't just lift out of the the New Testament and just apply it into daily life, right?
Yep.
And so often what churches do, and this is what I've done, is we will hold leadership accountable to a higher level of fidelity and faithfulness than we will kind of attenders. And with attenders, we often have a don't ask, don't tell policy. But often what churches will do is, if they're large, they'll worry about the church leaders, those who are leading teams or leading ministries or whatever. And that's the way they'll deal with that. But it sounds like in this instance, there is somebody who has committed adultery and I can only imagine the fallout, from that. So how it's addressed, or where it's addressed, it should be, congruent with the how. So if somebody has a very public role, the idea of the New Testament is that it would be addressed publicly. If somebody doesn't have a very public role, it would not be addressed very publicly. So makes sense so far, Timothy.
Yep.
So that's who we're to focus on, and that's where we're to focus. But how do we judge? And we talked about this galore. But the difference between judging and discerning, right? Two different uses of the word krino, one of our favorite words.
We need to make Voxology like flashcards or something.
Oh my goodness, yes. Krino.
Firmament. Krino. We've got a whole bunch.
We do have a whole bunch. Yes, credo. It's one of our favorites. It's the word that Jesus uses when he prohibits judgment. And he says, do not judge lest you be judged. Do not condemn unless you
Don't use bad krino.
Yes, or you too will be condemned is the idea. And so Jesus is ruling out the kind of krino, which is the word for judge there, the kind of krino that condemns. And so one of the ways, like Greg Boyd has written some great stuff on this, but one of the distinguishing points he makes is that good krino, discernment, we'll call it, separates things like ways of life or patterns of living, whereas the bad krino separates people into good and bad people or sinners and saints or whatever else. And so even as we engage in like the helpful reorientation of other people, we're not doing that on the basis of their character or person. We're doing that on the basis of the behavior. And that becomes really, really important because, there are some big time sinners in the early church and getting drunk at communion and, the sexual sin was pretty crazy. And yet, Paul at the beginning of the letter will say, to the saints in Corinth. And there's an identity piece in the Christian life that we dare not ever attack on the basis of somebody's external behavior. So the good krino is the kind of krino that just separates, hey, this is helpful, this is faithful, this is flourishing, and this is most certainly not. And we don't do that with respect to the person. Again, kind of review. So the other thing that we do when we are, so let's say, it's with somebody who's committed to this Jesus. It's somebody that we're in relationship with, or in some way, shape, or form, this episode is in the community and it's affecting the community. And so it's something we have to get involved with. And how we do it, we practice the discernment. We don't practice the judgment. And we also recognize that we are the ones that are most often guilty of the things that we're dealing with in others, right?
Right.
This is the log and spec we spent loads of time on back when we did the Sermon on the Mount. Galatians 6, brothers and sisters, if someone is caught in a sin, you who live by the Spirit should restore that person gently.
Yeah.
Restore. So the goal of all of this is restoration.
Restore and gently, two very important words.
Yeah, that are not often practiced in this scenario. But watch yourselves, or you also may be tempted. And so there's a sense in which I'm never coming alongside somebody and saying, hey, have you considered this, this is not being aligned to kind of what it is to follow Jesus. I'm never coming at somebody as like somebody who's figured it out. I'm coming as a co-struggler.
Exactly. Yep.
Right. And this is what Jesus means when he says, consider if you see sin in someone else, consider the log in your own eye first. Deal with that first before you deal with the speck of dust in their own eye. So my sin is like a 2x4 coming out of my eye. Their sin is like a speck of dust. So I practice something called I'm the biggest sinner in the room.
Yeah, you're like you could say like a plank eye.
It'd be a great name for a band.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so Tim has a number of egregious behaviors, but one of them
I have a forest in my eye.
Is a lack of shaving.
It's true.
And no. So when we approach each other, one of the things that we're doing is that we're in a smaller group or in relationship or somehow we've been invited into this. We're dealing with people who have agreed that they want to be part of the center. They want to focus on the center. We're not doing this to people who are kicking and screaming. And when we do it, we're doing it recognizing that my sin, I'm the only inside that I know. So I'm the only set of motivations and desires and impulses, and I'm the only set I know. And so I'm to consider myself, much more guilty if I'm using those kinds of lenses than whoever it is I'm dealing with. And that's how you get to restore gently. Right, is instead of being somebody who's kind of holding the line and protecting the truth, I'm somebody who could either easily have made the same mistake or have in the past made the same mistake and have been shown grace. Now, all of that is, I think, kind of review. Those are the big theological tent poles. That there is a time when the community is affected where center set practices demand that we continually help each other reorient to the middle. And one of the examples that Mark Baker, the guy who wrote this book, uses is, hey, if we all agree that we're playing soccer and somebody picks up the ball and tries to play rugby, and we invited everyone there to play soccer and everyone knows we are there to play soccer, it's not unloving to say to the person, hey, we're playing soccer, and allow them to select, in or out. And so as a community of people focused on new creation dynamics, cruciformity, and becoming people who, restore shalom when it's broken, this sort of issue is an issue that we are invited in to address. Were you with me so far?
Yep.
Thoughts?
I have some questions written down, but I'll save them until you're
all right. Let me punch through this list real quick. Number 1, bad church discipline. And these come from just the following points, the preceding points that we've made. First of all, it shames and excludes. The goal is not to highlight somebody and to shame them. And I can hear people saying, yeah, but look what Paul did in 1 Corinthians when he excluded the dude and cast him out in the hope that his soul may be saved. We'll get to that in a little bit. Obviously, those are very different circumstances than what we're dealing with here. But if our judgments only serve to reinforce who's an insider and who's an outsider, then they're condemning judgments and they're wrong.
Yeah, and that is a very prevalent MO, like that,
Yes.
that version.
You bet. So the goal is never to shame or exclude, and that's why we come as people who've struggled with the same things.
Yeah. Who's the greatest sinner in the room?
Yeah, me.
You.
Yes, of the two of us, yes. Bad church discipline focuses on the externals. It focuses only on the observable behavior or the presenting sin, and the goal of it is to get you to stop sinning.
Yeah.
And as we've talked about before, the goal of Jesus, of Christ, in his work in the world isn't to get us to stop sinning. It's to restore the fullness of our humanity, which includes less sinning. But the goal isn't, and so very often what will happen is you have an affair like this, and you'll just deal with the affair.
Yes.
And we'll try to clean that up and try to have them reconcile. And hallelujah, we want all of that to happen. But if we're only dealing with the behavior that flagged this situation to begin with, then we're missing.
Yeah, now we're in the Sermon on the Mount.
Now we're in the Sermon on the Mount. Exactly right. Every story is unique. There are prequels to this. Like Tim, and some of you have listened. If you've listened to us for years, you'll know these episodes. But Tim had to write me a very hard letter several years ago, and where he said, "Hey, this is how I'm seeing something, and this is what I think you need to do in response to this." And it took a load of guts for Mr. Timothy John Stafford to write that. And it also invited me to make the best choice. It didn't shame me, condemn me. It didn't come at me as some holier than thou person. It just invited me to step into health. And good church discipline, we'll get to that in a second, is what happens. And the presenting issue was acknowledged, but that wasn't the focus.
Yeah.
The focus is on the backstory that leads there. And obviously we have to deal with the sin and its communal effects. That's the issue, is that we're not isolated individuals. We belong to each other. And there are some sins that are more impactful to the community than others.
Yeah. No, that was great. That description right there. How did you just say that? How did you just word that communally? Like how we exist?
I don't know.
Whatever
I don't know.
Well,
Rewind it.
Everybody hit the back 15 seconds button on your podcast app.
Yes. Well, and it's what good therapists do and good parents, right?
Yep.
When my kid says, "Hey, I've done X," to sit there and only focus on X is to miss
all of it.
The backstory that made X attractive in the first place.
Yes.
And that's where the transformation of Jesus takes place. At that realm, not at the realm of behavior. Like we can have all the accountability we want and the software on our computers and people checking our phones and whatever else. But that doesn't get at the heart. And that's what Jesus is obviously most interested in.
And that really shows the communal. It's hard to notice that stuff when you're isolated and individualized.
Exactly.
So,
yes.
yeah.
That's so true. So true. I'm a great hider.
Yeah.
If there's no one on the inside of my life. You bet. Bad church discipline is usually done between those who haven't sinned and those who have.
Right.
So whereas a 12-step group is a much different form of restoration.
Yeah.
Right? It's like you go there knowing every single person around that room has done exactly what you've done.
Yeah.
That's just such a different thing.
Yeah.
And some of the greatest healing I've ever experienced came in group therapy among people who, were far more of a mess technically, right? I use air quotes, but I fit right in. And so good. And then often what churches tend to do is they'll have some sort of universal process. Here's our decision tree for church discipline cases, or here's our process for church discipline cases. And I want to argue against that. So for reasons I'll get into below, I think what bad church discipline does is it causes people to leave, to hide, or pretend.
Yes.
None of those are kingdom dynamics. None of those are new creation dynamics. Now,
that's funny.
There are
those things cause you to isolate. Right? I mean, that's the outcome of each thing you just said, is that the way we conduct it forces people into isolation, which is the opposite of everything that you're advocating
That's
for.
right. I think there's something to be learned in 12-step groups that the
100%.
church has lost.
Yep. Which is funny because they adapt church language into that. Like you.
Oh, absolutely.
You say the Lord's Prayer, and you do it borrows from Christianity, however, is doing it better than the source material.
Yes. Well, I just had a guy who came up to me 2 weeks ago. He's part of a 12-step program. And he said, the interesting thing about churches is that they'll let us into their basements, but they'll never let us through the front door.
Oh.
And he was joking with other people in his group about how they always meet in church basements.
Yeah.
And he just thought that was highly symbolic.
They'll let us into the basement, but they won't let us through the front door.
Right.
I like that.
So
I don't like it, but
Carino.
Yeah.
And all of this, dear questioner, might just be totally like, duh, you're already doing this. Great. I just know I've seen it. I've been the discipliner and I've been the disciplinee, and I've experienced good on both sides and experienced bad on both sides.
Yeah.
And so I'm somebody who is absolutely grateful for the people who have spoken. Even I mean, I was I don't have to tell those stories, but I mean, even when it was unwanted, there were some cases where it was very unwanted, and it was dead on. So and it was more of my maturity in seeing it as opposed to whether or not it was right. So what's good church discipline look like then, given all the theological things that we've said? Number one, we have to deal with each case individually. And the reason we don't is because it takes so much time. In our community, we're in the middle of a number of troubled marriages, and they all take massive amounts of time. And there isn't some set process that we run people through. It's literally sitting and listening and praying and waiting and discerning and all the things. And it's really hard.
Yeah.
And it takes a really gifted community of people who are willing to sit in that. It's just super messy, and often requires outside help from counselors and therapists and spiritual directors and so on. The biggest thing is that if we're going to help each other reorient, we have to do it in a way that invites. It has to be characterized by an invitational flavor. So if somebody comes into our church and says, "Man, I just don't like this Jesus. I don't like what Jesus says about whatever." There's, you could say, well, that sucks to be you. Fine. Jesus said the way's narrow, whatever. Or you could say, hey, that's so interesting. Let's read some of his words on this together and just sit and wrestle with them. Right? That's a whole different thing.
Jesus said the way is narrow. See you later, bud.
Yeah, totally. Right? I mean, it's the same way we handle questions, and parents, we're guilty of this. We're guilty of turning our kids into little moralists because they learn how to hide and pretend. Yes. When in actuality, what we want them to do is we want to invite them into the true nature of their desire and their feelings, even when it's ugly.
Yeah. Yep.
And especially when it's ugly. Yeah. Being loved in our badness is one of the most transformative things that can happen, and it so rarely happens in church contexts.
Yeah, but happens in AA.
In the healthiest forms, yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And there's an invitational to it. No one's making, no one's coercing, no one's manipulating, no one's guilting.
Yeah.
Right? There aren't ultimatums and lines. No. Now listen, there are a time for those, right? There are cases where there is abuse. There are cases where someone's not safe around kids. There are cases where a husband has sinned so egregiously against his wife that he is not welcome to partake in the fellowship that is going to surround her and protect her.
Yeah, all the more reason to do what you just said and to take those individually or uniquely.
Right, exactly. But but even then, there's the invitation to always, we're here, we're not going anywhere, we're always willing to be here for you.
Yeah.
And allow people to walk out. Of course, Jesus did that too. Jesus saw the rich man and loved him, and he let him walk away.
Yeah.
But what churches shouldn't do is the heavy-handed, self-righteousness, coercive, manipulative sort of, and I'm sure, I have no doubt our dear listener, our dear questioner has done, none of these sorts of things. But as we're approaching a circumstance like this, if it's among believers and there's a invitational character to it, where it's like, listen, we don't have to do any of this. But as a community focused on new creation dynamics, here are the new creation dynamics, right? Forgiveness, restoration, repentance, repair. This is what we do. We play soccer. If you don't want to play soccer, that's fine. But this is what we're going to do. So the invitation is always back to the center. Mm-hmm. The invitation is always back to the center. Good church discipline number 4.
And that's like a visual representation of repentance. Mm-hmm. Right? Like,
yes,
turning back towards a center focus.
Not just in my outward behavior, but in my affections, in my mind, all the things. So good church discipline first is it takes every case individually. Secondly, it has an invitational character. Thirdly, it practices relational discernment rather than the condemning credo. And relational discernment. Well, yeah, it's what therapists do.
Yeah.
Therapists try to get to know you in the whole web of your life, not just in some vacuum of you and an issue. Mm-hmm. Right? You're part of a whole web of things, and you affect those things, and those things affect you, and so the whole web has to be appreciated. And so we don't ever look at people as isolated mistakes. We don't look at people as events or actions. We look at people as sequels and prequels and snapshots that we're just getting at the moment, and we're wondering what the backstory is. Curiosity is the best practice for the good kind of church discipline, because curiosity provokes us way beyond what the presenting issue is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And we can be curious because we believe in sin, so we're never shocked. We're not shocked that people, fall short. We're not shocked. We believe in grace, so everyone's welcome, and we believe in redemption of the image. Yes. And then we believe in redemption, so we never give up hope.
Yeah.
Right? We're playing the long game with people. Number 4, we deal with roots, not symptoms, baby. We're not just isolated actors in isolated events.
Masthead. Comes up in every.
It totally does. It totally does. It totally does. And when you're inviting people, you have nothing to protect. Right? Mm-hmm. When you're full of boundary lines, you're protecting something. You're protecting the group or the unity of the group or the identity of the group. When you're focused on the center, you have nothing to protect. You can simply act from a place of security that says, I am with you. I am committed to you. I am for you.
Yeah.
And because of those things, let's walk together towards the center. And Scott McKnight, we've talked about this a million times. This is what covenantal love is. Mm-hmm. This is what separates covenantal love from American love. Covenantal love in the Bible is God's ruthless commitment to being, he's committed to us, to be with us, to be for us. And out of that, then, he is committed to directing us towards maturity.
Towarding people.
Towarding.
That's another one of our flashcards.
Yes, towarding. We do this with kids, and our kids receive it well if they are absolutely assured that we are committed to them, to be with them, and we're for them no matter what.
Yep. Yeah.
Then they receive towarding as love. If they are not secure in those other things, then towarding always is going to feel like punishment, manipulation, whatever it is. Then they'll learn to hide and pretend.
Yeah.
And so, to undertake an issue of church, quote, discipline is to agree to a very long-term relational set of practices and networks, because we're just saying we're not going to let this couple try to figure it out on its own. And there may be cases where divorce is appropriate and separation is appropriate, and asking one of the other partners to take a Sabbath away from the community, totally. But we don't know that ahead of time.
Right.
And then lastly, oh my goodness, lastly. And this is the biggest thing I've learned in parenting, is that we're trying to inculcate rules, or we're trying to inculcate wisdom, not rules. In other words, we're trying to teach people to be wise. So there are, the problem with accountability software, which I've had, or accountability questions, all that's great. But it only focuses on the event or the acting out. It doesn't focus on it doesn't focus on all the wisdom that is, not practiced leading up to whatever event that is, right?
Yep.
And so with my kids, I could easily set a rule that just says no drinking, but I would rather teach them how to have a healthy relationship with alcohol.
Yes.
I could have a rule that says no sex. Or I could teach them how to have a healthy relationship with sexuality. Now, that doesn't mean they don't know what I think a healthy relationship with sexuality and alcohol looks like.
Right.
But the invitation feels different because it's not a behavioral thing. It's a heart thing. It's how I'm using something thing. And so all of that is to say how I would practice, quote, church discipline. And again, I don't even like that phrase. I would rather call it restoration or reorientation or something. I would rather use trajectory words rather than like in or out words. It's so much different from how I would have ever considered it before.
Yeah.
Constantly being curious, constantly inviting the person and people involved to be their best selves and take upon themselves new creation practices. And if they don't, that's fine. We're not coercing anybody. We're not manipulating anybody, but we're going to play soccer. Yeah. And if you don't want to play soccer, that's fine. That's fine. There are loads of other games in the world. We're just going to play soccer.
I wonder how much of it has been affected by churches being businesses, because you have a bottom line to protect. And so, do you know what I mean?
Oh, baby. Woo! Of course. But again, I mean, and I know I'm just a total repeating gong about this, but when the gospel is only save me from my body and my sins, and I'll go to heaven when I die, and Jesus is my forgiver, when that's all it is, then the church is only a place where I try to sin less.
Yeah.
And if that's the goal, that's Dallas Willard said it best. And so,
Willie.
Yes. So if the goal is that people would walk in wisdom and flourishing, that's it's just so hard. And so the way capitalism gets involved is the thing that funds the church is the Sunday service. That's what funds it. And to the degree that you're interrupting that funding mechanism with, difficult things or conversations or whatever, then, it gets a little sketchy. And so the churches that find themselves secure enough or free enough to deal long-term with really messy situations and people are churches that are using some of their financial resources away from the Sunday morning program and into this sort of relational web. And I think those are some of the healthier churches out there.
Yeah, but after you have a couple hundred years of church trajectory that has been following that business model, you see how the discipline and discipline is just one byproduct of that, or one example of that, but that's the way the church is built. So it's like, so here's the questions that I wrote down, and they have to do with that. One of them that I wrote down, though, you were talking about like inviting therapists or whatever, and how it just made me start thinking about how many pastors who have no business being marriage counselors are marriage counselors, right? There's these therapists who went to school and know how to do this work and like, are so prepared for it, but the church business model, like you have to elevate that pastor, and so they become kind of a godhead to a lot of things, and they shouldn't be in those positions.
Oh, good Lord, yes.
So the wisdom of inviting therapists is just an example, but
yes.
So the thing I wrote down was like
that. Hold on, Tim. That's such a big point. I just want to like. Did you have something that you wanted to say on that point?
No.
Because if you were moving on,
I'm moving on.
I just wanted to put an exclamation point on there. Yeah, the idea, and I'm all for, biblical counseling if we're talking about theology or how do I have a better view of God. But even in those situations, the Bible's only part of whatever solution, that's going to be. I mean, even people that have bad theology, it's not like their bad theology came and only exists in their brains.
Right.
It's been formed around experiences or habits or family dynamics or whatever. And so I think the church can slide too much into seeing everything in this kind of moral, therapeutic, deistic sort of way.
Yeah.
But most of the churches I'm familiar with don't slide that way enough.
Yeah.
Where, man, to be trauma informed, to be very sensitive to power dynamics around church abuse and scandal. That seems like wisdom these days. And this isn't, instead of capitulation or something. The idea that all you need is the Bible doesn't say that, which is really funny.
Yeah.
So it's. So anyway, great point, Tim. I think that's really well said.
All right. Let's see. I wrote it on a napkin with a pencil and I can barely read it.
See, YouTube, you get that.
Yeah.
You get that. You get to see that, YouTube. Yes. Yeah, I can't read that.
So I wrote down, change the conversation, the culture, and the public and private. And you've talked a bunch about the public and private, and for a pastor, and in the position of like, you have this version that is the one that is in the public, and you are not allowed to bring the private into that, and it creates this imbalance that always eventually falls. And so when I'm thinking about like reacting, how do we react to this couple that's with adultery, whatever the original email thing was talking about, like we tend to always just react to things. And you've talked about that a little bit just now with like only addressing the symptoms and not the causes or the roots, right? Like we just keep reacting to things and trying to restore, which is great if you're going the restoration route. But how do we change the conversation so that every church I've been at, every single church that I have been at, one of the main pastors had to step down for an affair. And I'm like, whoa, this is kind of like an epidemic. Like, it's 100. It's 100% for me.
Yeah,
of churches that I've attended, and so it's like that's a big. I mean, it's to me that's a big red flag that's waving. It's like, well, why does this keep happening?
Yeah, and
how can we change the conversation and change the approach, because the version that we're doing is forcing people into private lives, and then something happens and we're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this holy person did this crazy thing. And it's like, well, yeah, we pushed them into the closet and said, you know, we don't expect you to behave. We just know that you will, or something, like
totally.
And then when people fall, because they're human, we're not equipped for it. And so we just react and react and react and react. So it's like, how do we change the model that we have of building culture our culture or whatever? How do we change that whole conversation? And it's one of the reasons I'm excited about the pastors retreat, is because we have like the two people that we have coming in, the therapist and the spiritual director. Like, they're just these wise and understand that lane of traffic really well. Like they know what their lane is and how to help people in that lane.
Yep.
That's it. Those are the questions. So I was like, how do you redo this so that we're not always just talking about how do you discipline well? It's like, well, how do we change the conversation so that people can be more, I don't know, center focused in a way that is how you just described all of it. Like it's an all encompassing center focus, so that it doesn't force people into privacy.
Oh my
As
goodness.
shame does. And we've talked a lot about how we're such a shame culture.
Oh, Tim, man, we'd have to rethink church, pastor, ministry.
Yep. All of it.
Right? I mean, all of it contributes. All of it contributes. And there are people who do it in a healthy way, for sure. The ruthlessness with which they have to deal with the captivating dynamics of the stage, I mean, no one prepares you for that.
Yeah.
And certain personality types are, feed into that, and Enneagram types and whatever else. But yeah, the idea that as a pastor, and I think there should be higher expectations for people, because Paul seems to indicate this.
Yeah.
If you want to be an elder, pastor, deacon, or whatever, that's a noble thing. Mm-hmm. And that shouldn't just be anybody.
Yeah.
Totally get that.
Definitely not women.
Well, next episode, we're going to have someone to argue with that, Timothy. But the second thing...
Just joking, audience. Just in case you're new to the podcast.
Yes, we're totally joking. But to reframe that conversation, I think, and again, I'm so sorry to beat the same darn drum, is to reframe what salvation is and what human being is. Because one of the things we're going to talk about at this retreat, seriously, it's just so dumb.
Yeah.
But one of the things I'm learning in therapy, all right, me personally in therapy, and I'm learning from other people, is how dehumanizing ministry, quote, is.
Wow.
Vocational ministry, how dehumanizing it is. I can't be human. Mm-hmm. And there
as a person in ministry, not the effects of ministry necessarily, but being in ministry is dehumanizing to you as a minister.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then it becomes dehumanizing to the people.
Totally.
Of course.
Yep.
Because then the people exist for the pastor, and the pastor feeds himself through the people, and or herself. I mean, totally. Just awful. But the push into shame. One of my therapists had a great line that, there's a difference between secrecy and privacy. You absolutely should have privacy. Not everyone needs to know all of your junk. But secrecy means no one does. Privacy means the right people do. And that's the gift of you and Bonnie and Kevin and Brenda and others, Joanna, who spoke and have seen parts of me that just need to be realigned and corrected. That it can't be for everybody else. That's not like we were talking about, that's not a whole church thing or a public thing.
Right.
Very often it needs to be something that's, you done in and among people who are committed to you, with you, for you.
Yep. And
then there's thwarting. And so the fact that a lot of pastors don't have that because of the fear of losing vocational vocational income.
Yeah, your job. I mean,
Yeah. You have a financial incentive to appear more holy.
What do you do with a seminary degree once you are out of ministry?
I've been wondering. I don't know. So man, I think, Tim, all of that, and that's the kind of stuff we want to explore. I mean, we didn't intentionally mean to plug our little dealio here. And by the way, this is paid for, meaning we're not charging anybody for this. So this isn't some money-making conference thing we're doing. This is just like, hey, this is a gift we want to give.
Yeah.
And we were going to wrestle with issues like this.
Yeah.
So, man, so good, Timothy. And dear questioner, I hope something in this was helpful. Some dadgum thing was helpful. Because I think what?
Sorry. Hip, hop, whoop, hip,
hop, hop. What were you going to say?
Our little house church this morning, we were looking at the Lord's Prayer, and each family sat down and kind of rewrote the Lord's Prayer with the kids and stuff, and kind of rewrote it in our own words and in our own homes or whatever. But we were talking. I was asking the kids, like, do you guys know what hypocrite? Like when he says the hypocrite's in the corner, like what do you, what does that word mean to you? And then here's kind of what some of the inferences to acting and that kind of stuff that is being used there. But it was interesting to listen to the kids describe hypocrisy, and it made me actually, not knowing what we were talking about today, think about how many pastors have been forced into that position of being a hypocrite, being an actor. Doing things for spectacle and to be seen and to be heard, and because that's the model and the mode that we've built. I thought it was just so, I don't know.
That's a really cool exercise.
Well, the Lord's Prayer, I love that they're like, hey, we've got God here. Let's ask him how we should do this. You know what I mean? Like, totally. Great. I would do the same thing. I want Jesus to tell me how to do this. And he comes back with this 30-second, punch. And it's like, I think it's one of the best things ever. I think it's fantastic.
It's awesome.
I'm trying to, with the little worship miniseries, I'm trying to turn the Lord's Prayer into a song so I can do a little mini episode on that.
It. Oh, Tim, that's such a good idea. Ladies and gentlemen, if you cannot tell by the heavy breathing, certainly on YouTube you can tell, I'm joined by my best buddy, Seth Erie.
Like we Seth had a week
down. Seth got some sun. We were down in the panhandle of Florida. It was a little chilly, but Seth nevertheless doesn't feel the 60-degree water.
It's a gift of childhood.
Oh, dude, totally. He was going crazy. But Seth, do you want to say anything to everybody as we close it up today?
I'm hi people. Good morning and welcome to Fox.
Hi people. Yeah. Hello, YouTube.
Hello, YouTube.
YouTube. Ooh, Jim Savard. YouTube.
Jim Savard.
Whoa. I think people have hit stop now. They're on their recordings. But keep going. You want to do a blessing?
Yeah.
We need
a Seth blessing.
Oh, let's do bless you and keep you. You got it. Ready?
Bless you and keep you.
Yep.
We will just have faith upon you.
Yep.
Bless to you. We get to taste. We can bless Fox Office Podcast YouTube. Host series. I love Stafford.
I love Stafford. I didn't know that was part of the blessing.
That's the best blessing I've ever heard.
That is awesome.
Awesome.
Woo! Woo!
Whoa.
All right, till next time, friends. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this conversation. Voxology is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that is supported by listeners just like yourself. If you'd like to partner with us, you can do so at patreon.com/Voxology. You can also join the community and hang out and chat with us on the socials. Facebook.com/Voxology Podcast and on Instagram @Voxology. Thank you for walking the long road with us.